Good evening and welcome to the May 22nd, 2013 Agenda Review Meeting of the Pittsburgh Public Schools Board of Education. We will begin this evening with the Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Does anyone have any questions or comments on IU items? Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. The question I have, and I believe, Mr. Joseph, this may appear twice, nothing against you, Dr. Bear. I just want to, when we get to the item BU5, we are adopting the special education budget this evening. I mean, we will be adopting it next week, correct? So it's on the agenda review for tonight, right?
Correct.
Do we cover it here, or do we cover it in the regular business section?
We cover it in both places.
Both places?
Yes.
So we can wait then, right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Ms. Shealy.
Seeing no other questions or comments on the IU, we will move on to the Committee on Education and look at items 1 through 5 proposals, grant awards in the green section. And we have one change, and I will turn it over to Dr. French.
We would like to pull item number 20 in the general authorization yellow section. It's the parent and family involvement policy. There were some questions that arose last time. We would like to pull it so we can bring it back before the academic team for review, and then put it back before the committee that worked very hard on that policy, and also put, if we make any changes, put it back on the website for additional comment from parents, and we'd like to bring it back to you in June. In addition, there's one correction on item number 16 in the blue, second paragraph. There was one word was deleted. Look, the last line in that second paragraph should read, "This request is for up to 20 parents at a rate of $10 per day." It would be item number 16 in the blue, payments authorized.
Thank you,
That's all.
Dr. Okay, thank you, Dr. French. So we will start with proposals and grants awards, items 1 through 5. And if we don't mind, Mr. McCray, can we start with you? Holly?
Number one, can someone tell me a little bit about this project?
Okay, this project is going to support our teachers in our 6 to 12 configuration, or any school that has a middle grade in it. We're looking at, this is our second part of our MSP grant program. It's to provide intensive professional development for our 80 mathematics teachers. So really what it's trying to do is help us ramp up our mathematics teachers towards our movement into the Common Core.
My question, the reason why I'm questioning this, not that I'm not in support of this particular grant, I certainly am. However, the problem that I'm having is that it doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. What schools are you actually working with? Because here it says on number 4, reduce racial and economic achievement gaps in participating schools. Exactly what schools are you actually working with?
We'll be working with all schools that have students in grades, any configuration of 6 to 10. And so those are the goals, so that we would not, these are the expected goals of the program, so we wouldn't have any data to show that it's happened, that we've done that, because these are the goals of the program.
Okay. Well, isn't this a second part to this grant? You've gotten this grant before?
This is a continuation of a grant, but but this is a particular around the professional development in partnership with Westminster College and other resources. It may have been slightly different from the prior grant.
Okay, because, well, then I'm confused. Somebody's looking, somebody, I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Dr. Hawley, I'm not in a position to allay your confusion at this point, but we can get you more information on how far we are into this grant, because it appears, at least, from the information that's available here, and apologize, Dr. Lippert is out of the city this evening, so we knew that we may end up having to get some questions that we were going to forward to her. But it appears that this funding will support year one of a 3-year project. So even though I think some work has gone on, I don't know that all the training of these teachers has taken place yet. I don't believe that, pardon?
There's been no training.
There's been no training, so, yeah, so the goal would be that the training would help us reach the goals that are stated for the grant. Yeah.
Year one of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me, what schools are you actually going to be working with? Because, or are you just going to be working with all of the schools in the district that are from 6 to 12 or have 6 to 10?
Yeah, all the schools that have students in those grades, the math teachers at those schools would be a part of this.
So next year, we will have some data on how well the teachers actually, well, maybe not next year, but maybe later on in the summer, we'll have data to show how well the teachers were actually able to disseminate information to students in terms of the Common Core and to help them pass those tests.
And I think when we say data, I don't want us to say PSSA because we will have some more interim data in terms of how kids are doing in mathematics. For example, we'll know what kind of grades they're getting. We'll know if they are being successful in passing their unit tests in math, that kind of thing. So, as I said, even though we tell everybody the PSSA really matters, but we want to look at other important indicators that would give us the idea that things are improving even if we haven't seen anything on PSSA yet.
Thank you. Number 3, the submission to PDE for Pennsylvania pre-kindergarten counts. Can you tell me about approximately how many children that will affect? You don't know the exact numbers, just.
Yeah, according to the item, and Ms. Brown-Mountain is here, she can respond too. It says we're going to have, yeah, I'm sorry, 459 children.
I'm on number 3, the submission to PDE.
Oh, okay. Okay, it says services to 161 children and 100 children in the summer program, I'm sorry. Yeah, the grant will support a total of 459 children, 198 will be in school district classrooms. And then we partner with these other agencies to support an additional 161 children and 100 in the summer program, so that would be the total.
Can you tell me where, maybe Carol, Mrs. Barone Martin could tell me, which small world are you going to be working at? Do you know where that one would be located? Because there are several.
Yes, Carol Barone Martin, Executive Director for Early Childhood Education. It's the downtown small world.
The downtown one, okay. And I'm glad to see that you're at least trying to cover the entire city. And especially, I was wondering if you were going to be able to get some of those students that are downtown in daycare there. So I'm glad to see that. Thank you.
Mrs. Azuda?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Eisler?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I just want to go back to one. My understanding is the way this is written up, Dr. French, this is the first year of a 3-year project. And this is all us. This is not tied into any of the other math collaboratives in the region. For instance, like the one at the IU. This is totally for this school district.
Yes, that's correct, but we had a similar grant for the past 3 years in all of our high schools. This is a new grant that will start under new requirements, new goals, and new purpose.
And the collaboration with Westminster College Education Development Center, I'm assuming that's Boston, the EDC in Boston, and the University of Pittsburgh doing the evaluation, correct?
Yes.
Were any of those partners in the previous grant, or are these all new?
You know, I would have to check. I'm not sure who
Okay.
did the evaluation.
Great, thanks. Just a couple questions, if I can, about the early childhood items. In the item number 2, which is a Head Start and Early Head Start, knowing that with sequestration, Head Start is one of the programs that was receiving a decrease. Is this a decrease over last year?
Carol Barone Martin, Executive Director for Early Childhood Education. This is a decrease for the year going forward, if that's what you're asking. Because of the way our funding year hits in the federal funding year, we were not affected this year by sequestration, but we will be affected for the upcoming school year.
So in essence, then, since the federal government still doesn't have a budget, children are suffering.
Exactly.
Thank you. In the Pennsylvania pre-K counts, again, Pennsylvania had a fairly steep decrease in funding for early childhood. Was pre-K counts decrease significant?
The decrease over the last 2 years has been significant for all of our state early childhood grants, pre-K counts, Head Start supplemental, and especially accountability block grant. This year, there's a slight increase in the overall state funding, and this tab represents what we applied for. We have not heard yet, I guess, until the budget is approved, if we receive that slight increase that we applied for.
A slight increase is in at least a proposed budget. And again, the reason I quoted the 459 students is because I'm assuming that most of these students end up attending Pittsburgh Public Schools.
Yes, they're all city children.
Right, thank you. Just going on then to the Head Start supplemental, which is 4, again, I knowing these are, is this also, again, going out a year and a half, is this also a decrease in what we have been receiving for our Head Start program?
It's the same situation for Head Start supplemental in that we received decreases over the last 2 years, and it's proposed this year to be a very slight increase.
How many students can we not serve? I mean, what's the difference between what we are serving versus what we will be serving if these sequestration holds? Is it a large number?
It's 100 students, Head Start students, that we would not be serving due to sequestration specifically.
Specifically, the category would be the Head Start children, right?
Specifically,
Decrease.
yes.
Then the last one, which is the accountability block grant, how does this fare in compared to the current budget?
For 2 years in a row, we received a significant decrease in accountability block grant. This year, it's flat funding, so we're happy to have what we have, but it certainly has been quite a decrease of about close to $3 million over the last
How
couple
many
of
children,
years.
roughly?
Which is probably about 300 children. Actually, probably higher than that. I'm
Right.
doing math on the spot.
Right, no, I appreciate that. I don't need the exact, I just think people need to know what the cuts do, especially in early childhood. Thank you, Mr. Brown Martin. Thanks, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome. Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Just want to comment on the fact of items 2, 3, 4, and 5, or as Mr. Eisler has been alluding to, are all for early childhood program. Number 2, we're making a submission to the federal government for approximately $10.7 million, and 3, 4, and 5 is approximately $7.2 million to the state for early childhood program. Some folks feel that if you concentrate a lot on early childhood, you can help to eliminate education disparities. You'll have to at least wait over time. In some instances, if you started now with pre-K or kindergarten, at least 12 years, 10 years from now, you might see the benefits. But it's something we need to really make sure we don't lose any advantage in that situation, because moving forward, talking about the future, that's where you can get a big bang for your buck. And if you can make sure that kids are really proficient in math and reading by the time they reach the 3rd grade. A lot of other ills of society would be addressed to some extent. So it's good to see those in there, and hopefully we'll get those all awarded in due time. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sumter. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi?
I, too, and I completely agree, Mr. Sumter, but I was curious, on the accountability block, what is the difference from like last year to this year, or previous funding to this year's funding, or whatever way you want to phrase it?
This current year to what we anticipate for next year is exactly the same. It's flat funding.
So this year it was, this time it's flat, but the prior year?
Going back 2 years, it was a little over $5 million, and now it's $2 million.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I heard you say it, but I don't remember. How many children do you think that have lost service because of that?
Because of the accountability block grant, I'm just guesstimating about 300. And in addition to the fact that we basically have been seeing flat funding for a number of years, and because expenses go up, that's the reason why I can't give the number off the top of my head, because when expenses go out, it's hard to maintain the same number of children.
Okay, but didn't we try to put something together where parents could pay some dollars? Is those children been served through that process?
Some of them have been served through that.
Okay, so I guess what I really would like to know is, how many children did we truly lose? I mean, if they've paid a little bit to stay in the program, that's fine. I want to know how many we've actually lost completely. And you don't have to do that
I was
tonight,
going to say, what if I
obviously.
put together a little chart for you in the board update this week?
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Brentley? Okay, I have a few in this section. Ms. Wharton, and it is around the 2, 3, and this might be Mr. Joseph, 2, 3, items 2 through 5. Item 2 is Head Start funding, federal funding that we are taking a decrease in because of sequestration, and it gives a specific number of children, approximately 106 children that we won't be able to serve under Head Start. But items 3 and 4 are both increased funding. Can't that help? I guess, where are those 106 children going to go? Like, how do you pick? They're all Head Start eligible. How do you pick which ones you don't serve? Or can we serve them by using the money from the other grants?
It's a complicated answer to that because each of the funds have different guidelines. But we do try to serve the most needy, which would typically be the Head Start children. But even with a slight increase in the other 2 grants, there's still 68 children that would go unserved if everything was even. Unfortunately, there's a lot of children that are Head Start eligible in the city, in our area, that we cannot serve because of funding cuts. So we will serve as many as we can, but there will be children that will lose service.
I do understand that, but how do you know who are the 68? Who are the unlucky ones?
Well, the ones that are in our program now, that are 3, that will be 4 next year, we will serve. In addition to that, each child, when they apply, there's a scoring sheet that we use, and it looks at things like income, single-parent home, if there's any child who is taken care of by a foster parent, if there's any child who has a teen parent. So we have a scoring sheet, and from that we determine the children that are the most needy, and those are the ones that are first to get the service.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just hesitate because it just bothers me to no end that there's a potential of at least 68 children who, as Mr. Sumter said, if we could start earlier, we're all better off, that we won't be able to serve. But we will move on to the next section, consultants and contracted services. Items 6 through 12. Dr. Holly, do you mind starting?
Oh, no, I don't know. No, I don't mind. Number 8. Can somebody talk to us a little bit about this program? Because then I have some questions that I'd like to ask.
Okay, this is a renewal. We worked with the Center for Educational Leadership for the first year as part of our Empowering Effective Teachers work. This is asking for a continuation of this work to specifically work with our ITL2 program, our 65 ITL2 instructional teacher leader twos, and helping them be better observers and conferrers towards this work of helping improve teacher practice. Also, the Center for Educational Leadership will be working with the assistant superintendents and the people who provide direct support to our schools, helping getting inter-rater reliability along the new principal rubric, as well as other components of Act 82.
Okay. Again, on the board information sheet, we basically have that it's going to improve the outcomes for students. And we don't know if this particular contract actually does that. So I'm confused again.
Right, so our theory is that if we have more effective teachers in front of our children, we'll have better outcomes for our children. The direct impact here is improving instruction, and if we believe that improved instruction will lead to improved outcomes for children, this is one of the, that's an indirect outcome of this contract. We do know of the efficacy of this work in terms of surveys and exit interviews from the people who have worked with this group in terms of helping improve practice around reliability. We have assessments that have been used where we can see that our principals have gone through inter-rater reliability training. We've seen improved inter-rater reliability on our metrics that we use to measure their ability to observe and confer, as well as to provide really important instructional feedback. Those are the metrics that we're looking at right now. We will not see the direct impact on student outcomes until we actually are able to see the impact from these individuals who will be working with the teachers who will then have improved outcomes for our children.
Okay, so
When we first started on teacher evaluation, one of the concerns we heard from both the PFT and some of our teachers as well was about, Principal A evaluates, goes in and observes and evaluates a teacher a certain way in school A, and then we go in school B, and that might be different with a different principal. So this idea of having principals, now, we'll never get to the place where every single principal is going to do exactly the same thing and do it exactly the same way, but we wanted to be able to validate the fact that our principals are basically seeing the same thing and rating it the same way. So there's been a lot, this was an early concern when we first were getting started, so we've done a lot of work with principals on that, and our principals, frankly, have worked very hard to get to the place where we can be reasonably certain that two different people are going to be seeing basically the same thing. So this continues that, and furthermore, with these instructional teacher leaders, we also believe that teacher leadership and working with colleagues that have expertise and also can go in and see the same thing the principal is saying and provide help to that teacher. So, our teachers say, we want support, and these instructional teacher leaders are the part of the group that will be giving that support as teachers want to improve in various components of their practice, or it might be something out of the tripod measure that they want to get better at, and so these will be people that will help them. So basically, it's all around, one, making sure principals are seeing the same thing, and two, making sure that the support we're providing our teachers has been well-trained and are able to coach them well.
And I understand that. My concern is that making sure that whatever they're being coached on, or whatever they're being teaching, or whatever you're teaching the teacher or the principal, is actually going to gain some significant outcomes, positive outcomes for the child. So we have a lot of these grants that we have that are watching teachers teach, watching principals observe and confer with teachers. We have a lot of those. But I'm not seeing where all of this is actually supporting, where it's trickling down and actually supporting the child. And that's what I'm going to keep focusing on, are the outcomes for the student in the classroom. Because when I get information from your last presentation from the Envision Group, where they're telling me that 74% of the African-American students in the district are in a low-achieving school, I cannot get that out of my mind. I'm still going to keep focusing on it. All of these grants, all of this money is actually supposed to enhance the instructional practices of the teacher and also support the principal in helping the teacher to make a difference in the classroom. So my question is this program that we have, that we're spending $492,240 on, is it actually making a difference in the classroom for students? And I know this is just a second renewal for this, but does it make sense to keep going down this path if we're not seeing some success in the classrooms? So I'm going to keep asking that question over and over again until I actually see that number, that percentage decrease, where all of our students are actually getting a quality education, and we're not just looking at ways to observe and confer. I don't care if everybody agrees on it or not. I just want to see some good work being done in that classroom for all the students.
Dr. Hawley, that is the bottom line on all of this, because this isn't around activities for grown-ups. This is around making a difference for kids in classrooms. So we fully expect you to keep asking that question.
Okay, so I can only go up to 12, right? Okay, so I'll have to wait for my, thank you.
Can I get a point of order? It was 74% of the African Americans in this district in low-performing schools? That's not the right, that statistic's not correct.
That's what, am I wrong? Wait
I
a minute,
think you are.
isn't that what you had?
I
on
think
there?
we're stating it differently, but before I say you're wrong, I want to make sure, I'm going to look again and make sure we're using the right language there, because I don't think that's, yeah, and I don't have it here with me, so.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Azuda?
On number 6, are we using Keys Service Corp in any of our other schools at this time? I guess that's the first part of my question, and the second part, which would tie in, is I know we use the positive behavior, PBIS or whatever you call it, and we have that, is it SOS? In some of the, and is this like a third program? Are we offering any kind of consistency, is what my concern is.
So this is, we do offer, we do have Key Service Corps in other schools. It's different than a positive behavior intervention support, which is a theory of action around discipline and creating positive environment. This is actually a direct service. This is a group that will provide tutoring, perhaps after-school activities, mentoring, which is different from those other avenues of creating positive learning environments. So this is a direct service.
I guess, but aren't they looking for the same end result? Creating an environment where our students are learning. So is it two different ways to get to the same place? And should we have consistency? Or is it because of, depending on the need of that school, which program they would choose?
But they all are working towards the same goals. This board tab is to have additional people on the ground to provide tutoring, to provide activities for children, where the other interventions are models in terms of how teachers work together and how administrators work to create positive learning environments. So they're all working towards the same end. This is just, it's not incongruent. So this is just one way that we can provide additional resources for our children. This is in terms of tutoring and after-school activities.
So is it possible that one of our schools would have both programs in the school, and does that exist now?
Yes, it is possible. I mean, these are primarily tutors. The majority of our, very few of our schools have true positive behavior intervention support models. We have different degrees, but yes, we would. And for example, at University Prep, we have Success Schools, but we also have this service there.
Okay, that's what I was trying to see. Okay, all right, thank you. My other question, I think, would go back to you as well, since I don't see Mr. Franklin, is number 10. Could you just, like, talk to me about that? It's the consultant coming in to explain the new form to the teachers?
So this is exciting. For the first time ever, about 1,500 of our teachers will be receiving their educator effectiveness report, which combines multiple measures of teacher effectiveness. This person is going to come on board because, as you can imagine, that's no small lift. We want to make sure that the data is correct. So this person will not be exactly providing fully direct support to the teachers, but we'll be making sure that the process, that the data that we're using on the reports is correct. Also making sure that we are combining information in an appropriate way. We'll be there to troubleshoot. This is a person who came from CMU who has a very strong background in statistics and analytics.
So this person will work on the process, to the integrity of the process. I thought, see, and I read it wrong, so I'm glad I asked, because I thought this was more of how to roll it out to the teachers type thing. Or is it both?
It may venture into both, but they'll be helping the human resource team understand the analytics. Like, once we have this information, what do we do with it? We don't want to just compile this information and not make changes in our organization. So this person might be helping us analyze the aggregate data and how to understand this. But I wouldn't rule out that if a teacher called and said, I really don't understand this person would be able to help understand.
All righty, thank you. That's it, Mrs. Shealy.
You're welcome. Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Ms. Shield. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Lee.
Thank you. I did pull up that slide, and what the slide was depicting was looking in low-performing, and these were not only low-performing schools that had both low performance and low growth, so it was both factors. And of the kids that are in schools that have low performance, 74% of the children in those schools are African American. It is not saying that 74% of the African American kids are in those schools. So there's a difference.
So they're just doing poorly.
Well, no, the point was that African Americans are overrepresented in low-performing schools. So even though you stated it differently, that still is the point. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. Just a comment and a question on number 9. You know, talking to parents whose children participate in Summer Dreamers, I know one of the things they love are the book fairs, and kids love to take books home. I think it's great we're putting books in the hands of students, so thank you for that. And on number 11, which is a renewal contract, I'm just wondering, because there's always a number of questions about how we support our students and our principals and teachers when it comes to medicine, medication. Has this been working well?
Barbara Rudiak, Interim Chief of Student Services. Yes, it has been working well. Some background information, in 11-12, we had 10 medical professionals providing support to our nurses in our schools, and they were working for 8 hours. Last year, it was reduced to 5 medical professionals who were working 6 hours in our schools to provide additional support for our nurses, and it has worked so well that the contract will be for 5 again this coming year.
Thank you, Dr. Rudiak. Thanks, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome. Mr. Sumter?
No comments or questions at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. The Scholastic Book Fair, number 9, we're paying this cost to pay for the books, or are we paying for something else? Just the books? I don't know who answers.
Yes, the books.
Just the books. And so it's an up to amount then,
That's correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And on number 11 and 12, and Mr. Eisler almost answered my question, but how do you disperse these services?
I can't tell you specifically, but the coordinator of health services has a schedule, and in some cases, they go on a regular schedule to schools and provide support to the nurses, and also to the schools who need, many of our students need medication every morning or every afternoon, so they may have a regular schedule in which to do that. Then other times, when our nurses are providing physicals, the schedule may change in order to allow them to do their schedule so that medications and other supports can be provided so that the physicals can be done in a timely manner.
So they're on an as-needed basis where they need to be, to be?
Yes.
And then they are school nurses though, correct?
I can't give you the letters behind their names because I would mess that up, but and I can provide that in a board update, but they have nursing licenses.
Yeah, I figured they had nurses' licenses, but I always thought there was a difference between a regular nurse and a school nurse. And I just want to make sure that these were school nurses.
It's a nurse practitioner.
Oh, sorry.
There's RN, there's BSN, there's school nurse practitioner, and there's LPN, and these are all, the school nurse practitioner is someone who actually has authorization to, for example, give kids physicals. And so typically, if you just need someone to administer medication, you do not have to have a school nurse practitioner for that. A school nurse practitioner has a higher level of skill for procedures that are, as I said, for example, physicals.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Brentley?
It's on that, excuse me, that same question. I was going to ask a similar question, and that is, I noticed that they have a different title for those positions, those five. They're licensed medical professionals. And so it's that title versus the nurses. And I guess my question is that that scares me, first of all, that we can hire or consult with someone who can come in and act like they're a nurse and provide medical medication to the students. And so in the case of someone coming in and acting like one of our nurses and misdiagnose and give a child the wrong dosage of a medicine, who's responsible?
Well, first of all, no nurse is qualified to diagnose. Only doctors
Well,
can
it's
do.
to give medication.
Only doctors can do that.
I'm aware of that, thank you.
And secondly, if a child is to be administered medication at school, we have to know precisely what the dosage is and what the medication is. And so there's a documentation kept in the school, in the nurse's office, in regard to what dosage a child's supposed to receive, who's supposed to receive it, and within the last 3 years, we added a photograph of the child just to make sure that we're giving the right medicine to the right child. This happens whether in a lot of situations. For example, there are occasions when the nurse is absent, the nurse might be sick, the child still has to have medication. So somebody's going to have to administer it. And I know that it used to be that the secretary gave it to the child, the principal gave it to the child, the assistant principal would give medicine to a child. But now it has to be a licensed medical professional. It can be a LPN, can be an RN, can be a BSN, could be a school nurse practitioner, but it has to be someone who has a license to perform that particular act.
Have we ever had a case in the district where someone, not one of our nurses, but a stand-in licensed medical professional gave the wrong dosage or misread on what to give that child?
I'm aware of one instance, it was several years ago. That's why we added the protocol around the photographs.
Yeah. That's kind of a gamble for me. That's a gamble. I've mentioned before, Doc, and I'll mention it again, I just think it makes sense for us to hire the nurses with all of the qualifications. Our nurses are doing much more than just being nurses. They develop relationships with these kids. They develop relationships with the parents. Some are assigned 2 or 3 schools, and don't ask me how, but they manage to still know what school a child goes to, his mother, and can tell you on the spot his or her medication and what time. That is an added benefit that we should be excited about versus contracting something out, and based upon the company, we may not get the same person at the same school, and so there's no way that they can learn or know the history of any of our children. So I don't know. I just think that continues to be a questionable use of dollars when we just contract it out. You know, medication, you only get one time to misunderstand giving a child the bad not the right dosage, and it could be bad. I don't even worry about on the district side, but what it would do to that family and that child, and it's unimaginable. So, I mean, that scares me as a father of 5. I would have to know and feel comfortable that nurse is a part of that team in that building and would be able to rely on his or her knowledge of that child all the time. So, I'd like to just consider hiring our own, but I'll go to the next one. I have a question on number 8. This contract here, nearly $500,000, Center for Educational Leadership. And Doctor, you said this is not an extension, but a continuation. So the first, what is this roughly the total amount of? This is over $1 million. Am I correct for this?
Mr. Brentley, I'd have to get you the amount of the first contract. I don't know.
Okay. But you know what if there's such a term, you know what I'd like to see? And this is respectfully, for me as a board, sometimes I feel like an ATM machine with an automatic door on it, because of the dollars that we have, and I've been here for 14 years. I'll wait till they finish. But because of the dollars that we spend, and, most of them always have the same thing, either this, now in the last couple of years, there's teacher training, or they've always said to work on, underprivileged youth and that sort of stuff. Hey, is there an opportunity to ever see an alignment with the consultants and the outcomes? Hey, we've given you $2 million over the last 3 years. Show me where there was an uptick in the scores of that. It just seems like that part is missing. But we continue the ATM process because they get automatic renewals. Remember a couple of years ago, we had communications and marketing, they built in automatic renewal. They didn't even have to come before it. Oh, 150,000, we just clean it every year. Somebody's got to get a hold of this, and somebody's got to really, I think it would be helpful, because what it's starting to see is that they use some of these same terms, African-American children, and yes, they need this and they need that, and it seems like be a great thing to get money, but where do we see if it's working?
Well, Mr. Brentley, one thing I'll say, when we see an uptick in student outcomes, I give the credit to our principals and our teachers, not to the consultants. That said, I think it is important that we provide support for teachers and principals to grow their practice. So that's what the role of the consultant really is. But I certainly support the idea that there has to be accountability measures for those who get significant, well, even insignificant amounts of money to perform certain services. And I think that I certainly believe that we can provide more information if the board is interested in more of that, and I think I've clearly heard that from more than one board member. We can provide more information in that regard.
And the final thing I wanted to mention is, Doctor, the information you just clarified on it, that 74% of African Americans were either in the low-performing schools or whatever that you described. Say it again.
Yeah, and let me see if I can pull this up again so I can see it myself. But what I think the slide that was being referenced was that, was a slide we showed you that had, showed the two different groups of schools, schools that were high-performing and had high growth, and schools that were low-performing and had low growth. And what we're saying, we did not say that 74% of the African-American kids were in low-performing schools. What we're saying is in that group of low-performing, low-growth schools, the kids that are in there, of that group, 74% were African-American.
Okay.
Yeah. A
Well,
number?
It would be good to have a number to know what percentage that is of African-American
Yeah,
students
we can
in
do it the other
district.
way and figure it out.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
can do it the other way.
here's what see for me, thank you, that's my point, Doctor. You know, there's no way you can, regardless of the way you slice it up, low performance, low growth means the same thing. These are failing schools, you know, or failing students. And I gotta tell you again, 14 years of on this board, there's nothing that irritates me more, and I am just starting to believe that it is, maybe there is not the will to address the issue, because it's been an ongoing issue of this board. I think I've voted on so many contracts and so many dollars earmarked for those low-performing schools, those African-American, and the numbers continue just to go up. Maybe we might have to have a real conversation. Is it too profitable to address these issues? Because if these numbers are here, there is no way any of us should be proud to even mention or to talk about a number of 74%. Low growth, low performance, whatever way you want to slice it, those students are doing bad. And if I would guess you can go back over the years and you'll continue to see a pattern. So I just wanted to say it is embarrassing to say it is embarrassing for anyone being a part of the board and to have to admit those numbers, number one, and number two, and not to have anything that's real in place to address it. We manage poor students. We don't solve anything. We manage them. And that's why there's contractors are doing so well in this district, because you just get in line and that ATM, and we continue, and there's no accountability, but the frustration is just unbelievable. These kids need to have some education and access to services as well. Thank you.
Well, if I might just say, we did not provide this information to you because we were proud of it. We provided it to you because it's factual. And we believe that if we're going to make the kind of difference we want to make for children in this district, the facts have to be on the table, even the ugly ones. And so this was never in an intent that somebody was proud of this. We're not. But we felt it was important that this board be aware of some of the challenges we're facing in the school district as we try to grapple with this financial problem and then issues like this one. Because even though I don't believe that money can solve it, most of what needs to happen does cost money. I mean, it costs money to pay people to do the job they need to do in order to address the needs that kids have. So that was the purpose of the slide. As I said, not to in any way imply that this was a fact that anyone was proud of.
Mr. McCray.
Thank you. It's tough being last, isn't it? You guys already talked about the Scholastic Book Fair, and that's one of my favorite things, because there's nothing more important than owning a book when you're a child like that. And I think this is fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. We will move on to payments authorized, items 13 through 16. What color are we? Blue? Mrs. Azuda? Check. Mr. Eisler? Check. Mr. Sumter?
I'm good.
Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi? Okay. Mr. Brentley? Mr. McCray?
Number 14, CPR simplicity. This is great. I know I've been pushing for CPR and AED in the schools. I'm glad to see it continue. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Hawley?
Yes, sorry. Let me break that chain. No. I want to say for number 13, I'm happy to see this. I think this is an excellent idea. I wish that our other high schools, or even our middle schools, would also participate in this type of program. I know that Obama has a program similar to this, but Dr. Walters actually trains his own students, his own high school students, for this type of project. But I would like to see this opened up to some of our other high schools, all of the high schools, so that they can participate in this. And it's basically so that the public will know a leadership training that's going on with Alderdice at Chatham University, where they will be trained to be good leaders in their school and mentor to the ninth grade students, give tours of their building, and let parents and students know about the different programs that are going on in their school. Children are the best ambassadors that you can find for your individual schools. Now, number 15, and again, therapeutic crisis intervention. Is there a possibility that this could be in the future given to other schools so that other teachers can have this particular training as well?
There is a possibility. The schools would have to just come forward and say that they would need it. We don't make restrictions on professional development for teacher opportunities.
Okay, now number 16. I'm glad that the school district is going to reimburse parents for transportation for their our most fragile and needy students. However, for parents who have cars and have that type of transportation, what happens to the parents who don't have the transportation? Their child just stays at home? Well, tell me what happens then. Oh, I need to know.
Mary Jane Conley, Executive Director, Special Education. Then we need to provide door-to-door service, which we do.
So if the parent, I'm sorry.
Much higher cost.
At a much higher
Yes.
cost. Okay, I just want to make sure that the parent that doesn't have that type of transportation, that somebody is going to still come and pick up their child and take that child to school on that day. Okay.
Could you repeat that last statement since your microphone wasn't on?
We are bound by law to make sure that that happens. Every child has to have access to their education.
Thank you very much. Dr. Holler, were you finished? Yes. Okay. We are moving on to items 17 on. I guess that's the rest of them. Through 31, recalling that number 20 is no longer on the agenda. And we start with Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. Just on item 17, I think it's great that the Pennsylvania State Legislature, in passing Act 82, is requiring multiple measures of effectiveness. This specifically has to do with school administrators, which is consistent with things that we've been doing in this district for quite a while. So I like to think that we're potentially a leader and not just an implementer when it comes to this Commonwealth in education. On item 21, I'm assuming that this particular item, and this may be going to the attorney, that this is something we have to do by law? We have to adopt this as a school district policy? Is that why it is here?
Yes.
By law that we have to do this?
Yes, and just to keep consistent with the structure of our policy book, this is actually found as AR. It's an Administrative Regulation 108, but it has to be adopted by the board in order to fulfill our state and federal requirements
For special education?
for special
Do
education.
is this an update from previous years in terms of a policy, or is this all new from the Department of Education?
The existing LEA policies and procedures, which the state lumped together into one document, are currently found as our Administrative Regulation 108. and this just is being updated by the state for a number of reasons. I think Mary Jane could comment on the specific revisions that the state made.
Thank you.
Mary Jane Conley, Executive Director of Special Ed. Anytime there's a revision in this policy, which is promulgated by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, is sent to each district and must be approved by the board. This particular policy was changed because it used to be that a parent had to sign medical authorization billing access forms on an annual basis. Now, they've changed that so that a parent only has to sign that medical authorization form for access billing. Oh, it's one time, but we have to notify the parents annually that we are going to be billing access for their services.
Thank you. I just wanted to make clear that in my own mind that this is something that we are
Right.
authorized to do. We have to do it. It's like anything else that comes out of the states or the federal government. There's a couple items in 24, 25, 26, 27. There's some really wonderful donations to the school district from City Parks, from Brian Heating for our career ed program, for Shear High School for their auto body repair, the Federation of Teachers, and then books. I just, again, it is always wonderful to see the donations that the community is making to the school district, and it's something that our students, everything that's in here is something our students need. So for those people who are making donations this month, and we're accepting and approving, I just, again, want to thank everybody in the community for being part of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Really don't have any comments on the section, just item number 20 that is being pulled, and that's a good thing because it is a rather lengthy policy, and it is an important policy, adoption of revisions to the Board Policy 1012, Parent and Family Involvement. We had just worked on this policy in September of 2012, but again, because of the changes, but I would encourage everyone who has the opportunity to go on the website to read the policy, to become, conversant with it, so that when we do bring it back next month, we can have fruitful conversation on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Fink. Mr. Brentley.
I have a question on number 31. Now, this is unbelievable here. I remember this contract, and so, but this is another one. This is, what is it called here? The Bevan Educational Solutions. Now, we're giving another $111,000 to the contract that is going to increase from $208,000 to $319,000. So this is a continuation. Do you know what the total amount of this contract was, Doctor? I know we've been giving this company money for at least the last two or three years.
So one of the things, I don't know the total, I'll get that. One of the good things, just like the tab before, this is not out of our ATM. Our staff does a remarkable job of getting to be able to use other people's money, like the Gates grant, to find, or Race to the Top monies to be able, so we do not use our general fund dollars for needed improvements. This comes out of the Gates funding. It's also going to help, unlike other districts who have to comply with Act 82 and find supports, they're going to have to use their own monies. Because of the hard work of the staff in pursuing other avenues, we're able to utilize Gates money to fulfill some of these requirements. This grant, out of this grant, we're going to be able to pay Dr. Bevan and her team to help us develop the specialist rubrics, for example, the nurses, the counselors, to be in compliance with Act 82.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that, and Doc, some of the same things they're doing is what the other contractor was, almost some of the same language. And I am just fascinated by even though this is Gates money, were we required to use this company? Because I know it was raised years ago when the first piece of money came through. And so how do they?
So we're not. One of our most successful projects was the development of our RISE, our evaluation. process. And Dr. Bevan was involved in that. Our teachers have repeatedly told us that that was a great facilitation, great work. We would like to continue that in this development so that the counselors and social workers and other role groups have access to her in the development. What we do not want to do is just develop rubrics in isolation and impose them on our teachers and staff. We want to develop them in collaboration. This is a resource that we can utilize so that we're able to develop these tools in collaboration with our staff.
And so, is there a program where we can begin to talk to these consultants where they come in and they trainer? Where they come in and train our folks. And so it's not an automatic contract renewal, over and over. We see very little. We see it, we don't see its impact, and I'm just wondering, when will this ever end? Please, next week, I would love to have, for this company and also the last company, the total amount, including this recent increase. Now, this increase, I guess it's kind of legitimate. It's for an additional 62 days. It's just a little over $100,000, right? So that's not a bad rate, right, for 62 additional days. I don't know how we come up with, and I'm angry, doctor, so, okay, because I can't stop it. It's just, it's an automatic train that uses in my opinion, this is me, that uses our kids to get access to our dollars, and I can't stop it. And it's a train, so I'm angry and I'm venting because one of those students out there is one of my kids. And so it just angers me that and there's no stopping in sight. They continue to come forward and they come, and I got to tell you, being here for 14 years, this Bevan Educational Group and the other one we talked about, if you lined them up and offered to give me $5,000 to point them out, I wouldn't be able to point them out. I couldn't identify them. If they walked in these halls, I couldn't. That's how bad it is that this ATM system that we have, this automatic money machine that we give. And somewhere somebody, we use the term of alignment. Well, somewhere somebody's got to stop and say, wait a minute, we've given you $3 million over the last 2 years. You were supposed to be here. And then we sit them down right here and say, you were supposed to be here. You're here, but you're still sending us bills. At the end of this year, see you bye. And I'm just so frustrated. We don't do nothing, and but we're still failing,
Mr. Brownlee, I think the Gates, we have really stringent reporting requirements as well. This money was not for free, and they are demanding outcomes, and we are accountable, and we will share with you some of the reporting that we are obligated to share with them in terms of our outcomes. One of the things that we really do need to look at is what contributions have happened to date. We have a number of schools who are achieving STAR status in terms of the top 15% of growth in the state, and we have many African-American children who are in those schools and being the beneficiaries of great happenings. Yes, we still have way too many African-American children in our underperforming schools, but what I don't want to lose sight of, that many of our schools are benefiting from these interventions, and we're seeing remarkable results for some of our children. We will not rest until we get to remarkable results for all of our children.
And you know what, Doctor, I appreciate that, but I guess the question is that we have to wrestle with around this table is, are we seeing the results at the rate of which we are paying these services for? And, to spend $2 or $3 million and to see a 2% increase in 3% of the students, I don't know if that's a good measurable for us to shout and to continue to the contractual services with the same companies. Where are they located? Are they not from here, are they?
Relatively local. She's in Pennsylvania.
No, that's not as bad, okay, because I'm sure if we'd engaged the universities, we probably could have, got access to a lot of good professionals, probably not to say she's not professional, but at a much cheaper rate. They're interested in doing things with us and partnering, and so I am, that's all right. I couldn't tell you. Let's turn the machine off. Number 22, what is this understanding with IUP? Memorandum of Understanding? I know we got something in there, but I'd rather hear you explain it quickly for me.
This is a memorandum of understanding for IUP to place their students and work in partnership with us to support these schools. So it benefits both parties. What we get access to is their students who come and be able to provide tutoring and additional support in our schools. This is a program that has been in existence. The difference here is that this MOU is with one new school. We're adding Pittsburgh Phase on. It used to be Pittsburgh Lincoln in Fulton. And, you know, according to all accounts, it's a very successful and beneficial partnership.
How many years have we been doing this with IUP? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, I can get, but it's been a number of years. They're new to Phase On, though.
Okay, because I remember, if I'm not
It's been
mis-
over 8. It's
Okay.
been over 8 years.
Okay, because I remember there's a similar program, I think, at IUP, and the gentleman, his name escapes me, was a former employee, right, of the district? He worked with, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, but that was a great program. He worked directly with the students there, placing them in the district, and then especially the students getting into the teachers program. The beard, yeah, okay. Well, that's a good thing. Okay. Is that, what school is he? Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, just, I mean, it's a good program, that's all.
Dr. Nicholson retired. The program is basically a student teaching program.
Yeah.
And it's an urban track program where they bring their student teachers and they actually stay in Pittsburgh and they are with the school district for an entire year. It's called their urban cohort. They have one here in Pittsburgh and they also have one in Philadelphia. And Pittsburgh, Fulton and Pittsburgh Lincoln were their first, Pittsburgh Lincoln and Pittsburgh Martin Luther King were their first two, and then they changed it to Pittsburgh Lincoln and Pittsburgh Leamington. Then Leamington closed, and then they went to Pittsburgh Fulton. They followed Mr. Bivens. Mr. Bivens is almost like an assistant professor at IUP. And now they're at Pittsburgh Fulton and Pittsburgh Faison. And they saturate the school with student teachers. It's a reciprocal learning activity that they do with the university.
That's a good program. Okay, thank you. This last thing, Doctor, number 23, this is coming before us next week, and that's you, Dr. French, yeah. That is, I'm sorry, that is the Mount Washington Community Academic Charter School revised and resubmitted application based upon the written findings and recommendations. So that is the staff will be submitting its recommendations to the board for its findings? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't, I'm sorry, just a point of
Okay,
order.
'cause it's
So
not-
they already recommended that we deny the charter.
Right, I'm just wondering because there was nothing here, but that will be the recommendation.
Was it in the update last week?
I'm sorry.
It was in the board update.
Well, I'm not concerned about that. I'm talking about what's before us while we're on camera and at an agenda review.
Usually what we get, this is a typical item for charter schools, whether it's approve or deny, it's usually just the 2 paragraphs.
Well, I guess this one is because the renewal, this is, wait, no, not renewal, I'm sorry. This is a resubmission, and we made a recommendation based upon the resubmission. Okay, and that's what I wanted to get out for the record, for the public, and that's why I raised that question here, because the public probably should know that as well. Not only are we voting on it, but the recommendation will be coming forward. But if the staff rather hold it for next week, that's fine as well.
There's something to be out.
Okay, but do we don't give the details and any of those, or? I know, I mean, if you don't, we can wait.
No, if you'd like further details, we can certainly provide those again, but the recommendation is in the
Okay.
item. Yeah.
And this document is online, or folks can get access to this before next Wednesday?
I believe that's true.
Okay.
I believe
Then
that's
they
true,
can
yeah.
see the
Right.
details and the rationale for our recommendations.
No,
No.
no.
No, they're going to see this.
They'll see just what you're seeing in your white
Okay.
pages, Mr. Brentley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the other part, is that public information?
We certainly can provide it, yeah. I don't think there's an issue there. Yeah, we had a presentation, so.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, just curious, as you know, yeah, I remember it at the Education Committee, but I guess, as you know, things, we seem to be scrutinized a little bit more, especially when folks resubmit applications. And I just think it, whenever possible, to keep the open process is helpful, especially when we resubmit it. People need to know why decisions were made or recommendations were made. That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. Mr. Eisler covered most of the donations I was going to talk about. But the one I want to point out is the item number 24, the city parks, and their work at the greenhouse at Langley. This is, near and dear to my heart. I see a smile there, Dr. Lane. But I'm going to look a gift horse in the mouth and make sure that all the people involved have clearances. I'm sure that'll happen. I just want to do that. And in number 23, I was going to bring up, I'm very disheartened that the Mount Washington group was unable to get their act together, basically, and for the resubmission, because I think it would have been a great charter school. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Holly.
Yes, I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Brentley on number 31, the Bevan Educational Solutions. Granted that when we first started off on our principal effectiveness project, and then it rolled into the teacher effectiveness project, we actually have hired principals. We've taken principals out of their building. We've taken vice principals out of their building. They also support this teacher effectiveness observing and conferring in schools. I am still trying to understand why we are moving along with this contract yet again. And I'm not saying that it wasn't beneficial, and I think that it was at the beginning, but are we to keep these contracts for like a life?
No. Dr. Holly, the difference with this one is this is a group of people that we haven't done a specific evaluation for, because we did the basic teacher evaluation, but we have some role groups that were not really fully addressed. For example, a counselor. The counselor's evaluation instrument has to be somewhat different and more role specific than for a teacher. And so what the purpose of this contract is to finish out these role groups that need a specific evaluation that aren't included in that big bucket of teacher evaluation. So that's what it's for. Now, after this is finished, I think we're finished. Yeah, well, I'll say it, we're finished, because those are the only ones we have left to do. So we have to do counselor, we have to do, I think we're doing a separate one for nurses, and I'm trying to think of some of the other librarians are in there. So these teachers, they're teachers, but they're not classroom teachers. And so that's what this is for, to develop an evaluation for the nurses, evaluation for the counselors, evaluation for librarians, and as I said, roles that are not classroom teachers.
And you know, my understanding is that for this past year, that's something that this group, or where she could have actually completed for the last school year, for the 2012-2013 school year. You know what, I cannot support this, because this contract it seems like it came and it just keeps on giving, just keeps on coming. It hasn't stopped. And I specifically asked this question this time last year when we were going through this contract again. Do we have to have this? Then we brought on another person with the same amount of money. It was almost, I think it was $180,000 for another person. And it's not that the two groups are not able to perform the work, but I was under the assumption that the work now was completed. And now somebody's telling me that, no, they're not completed. We're going to give them yet another bucket of money. And it almost does seem like an ATM machine that And I know that it's not general fund monies. However, we can also use that Gates money to actually help students within classrooms and work with teachers. And with all these people that are outside of the schools, not in schools, working deliberately in a school, assigned to a school, you mean to tell me that they can't develop this process? I mean, you can have people with PhDs, EDDs. I'm not understanding why they're not capable of doing this work.
I don't think anybody's describing capable or incapable. The teachers that would be working with Dr. Bevan here would be the teachers who are actually having their evaluation instrument developed. So, for example, she would work with a group of librarians. So it's not that, you know, we don't have people within the district that are putting work on this as well. It's not just one person. And we have used a process where we wanted to engage people in developing their evaluation and not just have somebody else go do it. So the process, it's faster, frankly, to just tell somebody to go do it. And it'd probably be cheaper, really, and just say, you know, come up with an evaluation for the nurses and send it to us. When you want to use a process where people are engaged, it does take longer. You have to meet with people, you have to hear them out, you have multiple times it comes back to them for changes, concerns, addressing the things they like, they don't like, all of that. So processes where people are engaged take longer and are frankly more work to do. So that's one of the things that causes us to need to get this finished. But as you said last year where we're going to be finished. Well, this is, to my knowledge, the last group. These teachers that we kind of put back because we knew that the rubric we based the teacher, our regular teacher evaluation on, Charlotte Danielson's rubric, is not a fit for a nurse. It is not a fit for a librarian. It is not fit for a counselor. And we told them we would develop an evaluation just for them. And so that's what this process is to do.
You know, and I just want to say, Dr. Lane, I'm not saying that somebody else in the school district would do this in isolation of that work group. I would expect that the work group and someone would be working with them to develop their own rubric. I have no problem with that, and I think that that would be the most equitable way of doing that. I'm just saying that there should be somebody left in this district who's, all of these people we have that go around and observe and confer with teachers and principals, they have had this training, and I know because I was there taking the training with them. So I know they have this training, and they have the expertise in order to build this model for them. So I don't understand why we have to pay somebody, an outside consultant, to come in and do this work with them. That's just my only, and it does seem like we're just, it's like it never goes away. And you're telling me that this would be the last year, but, you know, I think that this year really should be, this school year really should be the last year. This is what we had, I thought we had agreed to when we went through this last year. But it seems that it just keeps coming back.
Mrs. Azuda.
My concerns are on number 30 with the ESL program upping the amount for translation services from $20,000 to $25,000. I think it's almost too little, but thank goodness we're doing it. My concern ties into this. Looking at tab 28, Beechwood School has, it's right now, 71 students enrolled for kindergarten next year. It's my understanding a third of those students are English-speaking students with many non-English-speaking parents. So that means the students are not ESL students, yet the school must interact with the parents in order to ensure success of the students. And I think those students could fall in between the cracks because I would think, is the ESL program looking for them? I would think not. And so do we start another line item someplace to allow for transition student services for English-speaking students with non-English speaking? You would probably have the same in your district. I just know it's an issue at Beechwood more and more. The more international we get, the more challenges that the staff face there. And so I don't know how we work around that, but is that being addressed in some capacity?
The principals are very, we have an obligation to communicate with parents. And principals are very aggressive in letting us know when they have needs that are outside of the scope of the resources, and we will adjust these as those needs arise. So I would say we don't have the option not to do that, and so.
And I guess what I'm saying is this is coming from Jonathan Koval, the ESL person, all right? These students aren't going to be his students. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and we also, there's another line, you remember it comes through every year, we have translation services as well. Right, and what we do is that we will cover all requirements. It may not come out of this line if it needs to come out of another line, or it potentially can come out of this line. We would make it happen. We have an obligation to communicate with parents.
See, it's my understanding they're starting to feel the ramifications of the growing international population. And so that's what my concern is, that we make sure we offer support. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We will now move on to business and finance. Oh, shucks, I'm sorry. We have an education item that no one reminded me to talk about. In your orange folders. Thank you, Mr. Eisler. There is item number 32, a Hard Rock Cafe agreement with Pittsburgh Kappa. And I realize that this is a lot to digest, so if it's okay with everybody, we can, just in case, if you want to mention this later on as we move on to business, that would be fine, or we can just hold it for later. And I will start with business, mentioning the green folder, item number 28. Mr. Joseph, did you want to say anything about it?
Yes, in your green folder, you'll find a replacement tab for item 28, which is the resolution for the homestead and farmstead exemption.
Can I go ahead and ask you now? Okay, so the date, the year, the calendar year's changed,
Calendar year's changed and the amount has changed.
and the amount changed.
Correct.
Is this the last now therefore be it resolved? Farmstead exclusion for 2014. Isn't it for calendar year 2013, though?
No. And actually, we approved in this past January the exemption for 2013. We received the funds a year ahead, but since we're on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year, our resolution is for our calendar year 2014.
We did it late for 2013 because of the reassessment
Oh, no, we
process.
passed two resolutions. We passed a resolution when we receive our actual allocation from the state in May. Last year, this was done in June. This year, we're doing it in May. And we also passed the final resolution at the end of the year when we adopt the budget and approve the millage rates. And that is the final resolution, final amount that's based on the year-end assessment file from the county. So each year, we do two resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
You're welcome.
Okay, we will start at the beginning, which is items 1 through 23, the pink section, and we will start with Mr. Sumter, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I do want to bring the board's attention to items number 12 and 13, but not specifically to over-scrutinize the items, but to use as a means to segue into another concern that I have that is remotely related. Items 12 and 13 are regarding the mechanical work and the electrical work regarding putting a HVAC system in the security room at Pittsburgh Malines. So it's to air condition the security room. So the question would be, is this an internal room or an external room that has an outside window? During the pre-business meeting, we noted that there was a picture on the wall of Madison Elementary, which is closed. And I pointed and noted that in the office, there's a window air conditioning unit in the window. Yesterday, Madison was used as a polling place. And I had mentioned prior to this meeting, I think it was last month, the concern for the peeling paint and the flaking plaster in that area where the polling is being conducted. Now that would pose a health hazard for those who are working in the building at that time, working on the polls. There's 2 polls located there, and also for the several hundred or couple hundred of voters who come through that room during that time. It was such a concern that those who were working the polls were stating that they did not want to return to that site unless something was done by the Department of Elections, which would in turn be calling the school district to address the concern, is my assumption. But I did mention it before the vote took place yesterday, and I'm also going to repeat it again so that it is hopefully addressed before we have to enter that room in November again and for the future. But there's an abundance of peeling, flaking plaster, peeling paint, to the point where when you put the voting tallies up on the wall with a push pin, you have to dust off the asbestos off the push pin because it's flaking down. During yesterday, the air conditioner was on in the office. The custodian was using it because of the temperature. The office is at least 3 or 4 classrooms down the hall from the polling place. Folks sitting in the polling place could feel the effect of the air conditioner in that window blowing all the way down the hall. So if that's a working unit, if it could be substituted for the work that's being done at Malines, I don't want to confuse it, whereas one's a window unit and one might be needed for security equipment and to be quiet, in-house, new, latest technology, whatever. But I only mention it because the concern for me is the health and safety of the polling place, number one. But to also mention that it is a well-functioning air conditioner in that office to the point where the people working the polls felt this draft coming down the hall from a window air conditioning unit. It might cost a lot less if we could relocate that unit to Malines, less than the $30,000 that's being proposed to put the system in. But you guys can look back over as to whether it's worth it or not to go with this system. I'm not trying to debate it, but if it could be substituted or a lesser system could be put in, fine. Because if we're talking about down the road, maybe it's better to put this system in Malines to take care of the problem, especially if it's an internal room rather than, and if I remember where that is, there's no windows to the outside anyway, so it might be a moot issue. However, I use that as a segue to express the concerns regarding the polling place at Madison. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sumter. Mrs. Fink. Mr. Brentley.
23, you said 30 or 31?
It's 23.
Okay. I have a question for, this number 23. This is the renewal for the Fourth River Development Company for their contract. Now, this is the company that's managing our property or marketing our property. And Mr. Camardas, he's not here. Oh, hey, Okay,
I've changed things.
okay. Was there an evaluation of this company before this recommendation was made?
So we had the presentation, the Fourth River came before the board.
Right.
Made the presentation of what their work was, that was their product delivery. So
Okay.
we were using that as part of the assessment, what their work was, and what the steps were, and what they had laid out as what our next steps were within the process related to the contract and the path that we've asked them to put us on, and that they've had put us on. So we, evaluate their work was, we had them come before the board, so they would be able to update and let the full board know where they were at within the work we had charged them with. And we had that session, I believe, was in April, when they came to the Business Finance Committee meeting and provided their report on their work to date.
Okay.
And then we laid out what the next steps were, and we proceeded on those next steps, and we need their assistance to continue.
Okay. Hey, and I appreciate that, Mr. Camarda. This is a perfect example of a contract with an automatic renewal that should not be renewed. This is the company that made its recommendation for the sale of Shenley, or, wait.
The board made the recommendation to sell Shen.
Okay, but they were involved with the managing of it and suggesting and bringing, or how it should be sold. They were also in the packet they delivered to us last month. They're the ones who gave, in this room.
They delivered what they were charged related
Yeah.
to the board's desire to liquidate the property.
Well,
And they solicited bids, analyzed, along with committee, to make recommendation to the board, for the board to consider what their recommendation was, and the vote as each board member felt they should vote.
right. This is not a contract that should be renewed. This is a company that, this is amazing, this thing is before us. They also submitted their recommendations for all our vacant buildings. Now, they're telling us, I can see the list, certain buildings should be negotiated, some should we sell, some we should negotiate, et cetera. Even though it is just a mere recommendation, it was also played up like it was the gospel, and we had to follow their recommendation. It was bad information for a struggling board trying to get out of this deficit that we're in, and to make its recommendations on some of the properties. And yes, they were involved with the recommendations for Shenley.
They did what they were asked to do,
Yes.
yes.
And
Absolutely correct.
yes, they were involved. And to come forward with the recommendation of those dollars that was recommended for $5 million for that property, and they're a development company, we're in a financial situation here, and they came forth with a recommendation for pennies. I mean, the community was outraged. Over 1,000 people signed this petition not to sell the building, and then on top of selling it, it was at a ridiculous rate. And so by the time after the time everything was paid off, I think we walked away with $2 million, maybe $3 million out of that $5 million sale? Somewhere around there?
It'll be more because the debt service was less. We won't have the closing until August. Pam Capretta and Ron will be able to report out final results from the sale.
Okay. But it won't be near $5 million what it was sold for.
There were costs for the sale and existing debt service, so you're right.
Right. I will not support this, and I'm encouraging my colleagues. You reward people when they provided service to this community and service to this district, and we're paying them $120,000 for them to come and to recommend that we give away our assets, just give them away, and then come forward with the second round, and you negotiate this, you do this, you do this. No, this should not be before us without a real evaluation. Their presentation, or what they gave to us last month, to me, I view that as a presentation of our vacant properties. That was not an evaluation. And we need to evaluate, was it good having you as a business partner / marketing, developer, expert? Did it benefit us? No, it did not. No, it did not. when your expertise can only bring that recommendations to give Shenley away for those pennies, won't support it. I'm hoping my colleagues would consider, let's act, you know, let's put it up for bid if we need a company. And let's take proposals from those companies. Let's give them our property and say, what would you do to bring us more money for these properties? Give us your recommendations before we renew a contract. This company is not working with us, and this company can continue to cause all kind of problems in this community. Just this weekend, based upon that giveaway of Shenley, now there's a coalition of groups now, and all of a sudden coming together, well, we're going to call for a moratorium on no more selling and no more closings of schools. And where did they have the rally ended up at? In front of Shenley. So now it becomes a landmark of how a public body gives away its assets and not even keep in mind, or they're mindful of what the community's needs are. And in this case, we lost all the way around on it. So I am disappointed it's coming before us. I will not be supporting this, and I'm sure those in the community who are watching it, you've seen this company's work. Obviously, they're not supporters of public education, and so we're not sure what their method is to that. And finally, when we originally signed this contract, have we asked for let me see what the correct word, and please help me, Mr. Attorney. Have we asked for for this company to sign a contract, a letter of interest? I mean, did they have any business interest in any of these companies that they're recommending that we sign their property? What's the correct word?
They're excluded, Mr. Brandon, they're excluded from submitting a bid for any of the buildings right now, and that's part of the process. They couldn't be self-serving, quite frankly.
Okay, but does it prohibit any of their partners or anyone affiliated with any of their companies from being a part of a company that may purchase any of our properties?
Fourth River cannot be part of any company purchasing one of our
Okay, I understand Fourth Rivers as an entity, as a company, but there were 3 individuals that gave us a presentation. Is there anything that prohibits the individuals from being a part of a company that purchased the Shenley and having an interest in a second-hand or third-hand level?
You're implying that somebody would form some other group to buy some, I'm
No,
not exactly following you.
Yeah, let me say it
except
this
for
way.
that-
I'm not implying, Mr. Kamara, I am asking, how deep did we go to make sure that there was no one in their company affiliated with anyone who could benefit from the purchase of any of our properties? For instance, 3 individuals, we'll call them individual A, B, and C. Does individual A, is he also a part of company XYZ that was in line to purchase XYZ company, building from the district, which in fact would make him still a beneficiary of the information that they're sharing? And so I'm asking, have we required them to submit that, number one? And number two, have we required that they tell us, you know, because, look, they're with development companies, just like anybody else. If there are 5 big companies in the area, these guys know each other. There's a relationship, there's an association, and who's to say that conversations weren't held? Something happened for the recommendations and how their recommendations on giving things away here. So if you can find a legal term for me, something to show that they have no interest, no conflict of interest, anyone in their companies or individuals or their families or affiliated with anybody that purchases any of the buildings that we've already sold based on the recommendation, and also in the very near future. I will not support this. Sorry it's here before us. Terrible way to give public dollars, to have someone to not give us good information. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mr. McCray. Dr. Hawley.
Yes. Let's see. For number 2, the iPad carts for the artistic support, is that going to be just in the you have 19 schools, so what does that actually mean? Are those 19 classrooms? What about the student, go ahead. did you expect for me to ask this
The
question?
carts are for the building, and the carts can be used in any classroom within that building. They're not assigned to a particular classroom.
It's not assigned to the autistic students? Because this is what it's saying, it's for the autistic students.
Specifically
Am I right,
for-
or, I mean?
Yes, you are correct. Correct. The difference being, some of the iPad schools that participated in the RFP do not have those classrooms, and so these carts will support those classrooms.
Mary Jane Conley, Executive Director of Special Ed. The,
No.
Mr. Campbell is correct. These are in buildings that have autistic support classrooms. These iPad carts will house the iPads for the individual students in each of the classrooms.
Okay, so now what happens to the autistic students that are in schools that are not part of the 19 schools, but they're identified as being autistic, and the school did not get the first round of iPads? So they're not privy to this kind of support, which I think is great. I'm glad you're doing it. Don't get me wrong. I'm really glad that you're doing it. But what happens to those students?
If they were not in a school who submitted an RFP and they did not get the iPads for that school as a whole, those students attending those schools do not have access to iPads at this time, but will in the future.
Okay. I hope that it will be in the near future, because this is a tool that really is very supportive of those students. I saw this done really well when we went to the National Association of School Board Directors, and I went on a school visit. I saw this really work well with children that were identified. So I'm hoping that we get that out to all of the students that actually need it. And really not just autistic students, but since you have that identified here, I wanted to make sure that all of them had them as much as possible. And with that question, which is not a part of this consultants or contractor services, are we going to be doing another round soon for iPads?
We will be talking about that, Dr. Holly.
So it sounds like no. Okay. Again, on the various schools, just one. Oh, number 18. Provide laptops and iPads. So where are the laptops and iPads going? 18, am I? I shouldn't have gone that far?
Yeah, you're okay.
Various schools.
Yeah, 18,
Look under alternate number 3.
Okay,
oh, thank you, thank you.
okay.
We're not doing alternate 3.
That's okay, thank you.
Mrs. Azuda? Sorry, sir.
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. Mr. Campbell, on item number 5, and I asked this question knowing that there are issues within this district with PeopleSoft, which is used by HR, and again, this is another software company that we use, but it's only for a specific part of HR, right? But is it integrated into PeopleSoft in any way, or is this a totally standalone piece of software?
At this time, this is a standalone piece of software that manages the substitute teaching staff.
It has no effect upon the issues that we may now and in the future have on the whole PeopleSoft system, correct?
No.
Great. I just want to make sure that when we're investing Because over the years, we've put a lot of money into technology, as you know, not well before your time when we were buying software, that it's given us, my understanding, some problems. Mr. Joseph, on 23, the question's being asked, and this contract amount of $120,000, which I'm assuming is in consultancy, is this the only reimbursement that this company gets? They do not get a percentage of any building sold or anything of that nature?
I believe that there is a commission for buildings sold that is detailed in the contract. I will have to get the specific
Can we
numbers for
get that this weekend before we vote on this? So we
Correct.
know the total amount that this company is getting?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Shealy.
You're welcome. I actually just have a question that is somewhat coincidental, but it feels, on number 11 and 14, is the coincidence that I hadn't noticed before is that the same same contractor was selected for both items. So that led me to a question that's not the point of this. My bigger question is, when we look at, and I'm guessing this is Mr. Joseph, when we look at percentages for participation by minority and women businesses, is this circumvention? Because they got two contracts that add up to like 1.6 million, or they're about to get two contracts that have 1.6 million. If they have a lot of smaller contracts, is it such that they don't have to meet our participation guidelines as opposed to an aggregate total?
I'll try. The levels are set with Ms. Castleberry related to the specifics of each contract, and the participation levels are set within each one. So each contract is looked at as part of what the specific work is and how there can be participation within the contract. So I don't think there's any circumvention related to a contractor who's succeeding in multiple contracts. The piece that we look from a management perspective is the capability and ability for a contract who's winning on multiple contracts to be able to deliver the work within their size of their company. That's one test we get. That's a performance issue. But on answering your question, I don't think there's a circumvention.
So let me be specific then. What was the contract for, what was the percentage for number 14? Because, I mean, that's a big contract.
I'm not sure if, Mr. Joseph, do you have the information?
My question was, what was the participation levels, percentage targets for numbers, I'm going to throw 11 into, 11 and 14? Because I guess what I'm trying to get at is whether we have a bigger policy issue about percentages being different based on the amount of the contract.
It's right here. There's something like that, too.
For,
Good evening. My name is Paula Castleberry. I'm the Minority Women Business Coordinator, and thank you for the question. As Mr. Camarda mentioned, we look at each individual solicitation package to determine if there are potential subcontracting opportunities as it relates to labor and as it relates to materials. Based on what we share or what we discuss with the representative from the Facilities Department, and based on our awareness of those certified MBEs or WBEs that can provide those products or provide those services, we will calculate an EBE goal, which may not be the same goal for every project. I don't recall off the top of my head what the goal is for that project, but I can get that information to you. I can get the goals for all of the projects in this packet.
I actually have the information regarding the goals. Sorry, it took me a second to calculate it. For item number 11, the goal was 17%, and the actual EB percentage for participation was 92%, and on item 14, the goal was 15%, and the participation was 20%.
In those cases, especially where you see a firm like Air Technology, Air Technology is a certified WBE firm. So whenever we have a certified firm bid as a prime contractor, which is what we really want, whenever we have a certified MBE or WBE firm bid as a prime contractor and win, any participation they provide on that project is counted towards the goal.
I guess the one concern is when you say that they qualify as a WBE, do they have a goal also? Are they treated different than non-WBE?
They are not treated any differently. The goal is attached to the project, not to the contractor. So no matter who bids on this project, we never know who's going to pick up the solicitation package. We don't know who's going to respond to the solicitation package, and we certainly don't know who's going to win the bid. No matter who wins the bid, the goal is still the same. However, if an EBE, which is collectively certified MBEs, WBEs, and DBE firms, if an EBE bids on that project, which we really encourage, which doesn't happen very often, if an EBE bids on that project as a prime contractor and wins, we will count their participation first towards the goal. And in many cases, even if if the successful bidder is an EBE firm, in many cases they partner with other EBE firms on that project.
Now, when you say you count that towards the goal, if the whole company is a WBE, how do you count that towards the goal?
So for example, we'll say number 14, I think it's over $1 million. On any project, there's always going to be labor and materials. Not necessarily the same percentage of labor and the same percentage of materials, but on every project there's going to be labor and materials. So the prime contractor is probably only going to provide labor, not materials, because that contractor is not a manufacturer. So they're going to have to buy their materials from someone or somewhere. And those dollars, if they're not coming from a certified MBE or a certified WBE, will not count towards the goal. Still confusing? Clear as mud? No.
It's crystal clear, but, okay, so I guess I would like to make a request going forward, and maybe for this packet specifically, but for all packets, it's just really useful if we say that we want to involve minority and women businesses, it would be really useful to know whether we are involving minority and women businesses. And so that the goal percentage and the actual percentage would actually be helpful information in assessing what the success of the program or the success against our goal. Go ahead.
So do I understand you to say that when we submit, and I'm just looking at number 11, when we submit a request for you to approve a bid, that it would show the goal and the participation for the lowest responsible bidder?
Yeah.
On the actual board resolution?
It's in here, isn't it? No. So I wasn't being, okay, thank you.
It's not provided in the packet you have there, but I think we emailed that information out to you in
Yeah, I
a
think we've
different
done
chart.
it separately. We've listed the firms and, yeah. Yeah, it's a separate chart. So are you saying you don't want it as a separate chart, you want it as a part?
You know what? How about, okay, maybe I'm getting into the weeds, so stop me if I am. But it would be nice to know by project, because this project number 11, well, I completely agree with Mr. Sumter's comments on projects 12 and 13. That's minuscule compared to 14. So it would be nice, I mean, when we see gross numbers, it's hard to pick that apart. So it would be nice if the table identified by project. And please, if I'm getting into the weeds, tell me that, and I'm still gonna ask you another way. But, you know, just, it's just not clear to me that we are meeting our, that our participation goals, and I'm not saying that you're not doing it, I'm just saying it's not clear how we measure our success in doing it, how we measure our success in doing it.
So, let me ask again, do you want it as a part of this packet, or do you want it as a separate chart by project? Because it'd be by project either way.
Yeah, I would just love 2 more columns.
Okay, that's
Just
clear.
2 more columns
All
right
righty,
here.
thank you.
I would love to give it to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Castleberry and Dr. Lane, and Mr. Camarda, too. We will move on to payments authorized, items number 24 through 27 in the blue. Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
I believe I'm good at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCray, Dr. Hawley, Mrs. Azuda.
Question on number 25. Could you please translate? Yeah. In non-technologies, for those of us who are impaired.
For number 25, this is a training course for one of the technologies that support our server environment. This is training on the upgraded version of that software.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. For 26 and 27 for the easements for Linden, can you explain why they're needed at this time and why it's coming before us?
Well, we encroached upon these 2 properties. I'm just going to put it bluntly. We erected a fence on a portion of one of these properties, and we paved a portion of a driveway, and we need this for the driveway for the school, and we were able to settle these permanent easements for these properties so that we can maintain the use of those portions that we encroached upon.
So the property owners are cooperating with us on making this whole?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome, Mr. Eisler, because those 2 were my questions too, but just let me go even more basic. What is an easement I know what an easement is, but we do not own this property. We will never own this, but a perpetual easement means that forever, till death do us part, we can
use it.
We can use it.
And they can never ask us for any more money than what we are agreeing to right now.
Not after they sign the agreement and we pay them.
It's just as good as ours.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We started, Sumter, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, I'm good.
So we will move on to propose, I'm not right. I'm in the wrong section, I'm sorry.
28.
Oh, thank you. General authorization, numbers 28 through 32. Mrs. Khaleesi.
And you'll have to forgive me, but I'm kind of confused with number 30. I'm not sure what this is.
Mrs. Khaleesi, I'm sorry, before, while you were out, is 28 the replacement in your green folder?
Yes,
Just
28 's
to
the
make you
replacement.
aware.
Okay, but I still have a question. No, I knew what that is. I know what that is. Number 30, could somebody explain to me exactly?
So this company provides actuarial valuation for our self-insurance funds.
Okay.
And as part of our audit requirement, they require us to have an updated actuarial valuation. So this is to satisfy our audit.
I understand that, but I guess I'm trying to understand is the reason for the amendment. What are you amending? What are you doing with the amendment?
The amendment is because we're asking them to do a new valuation and update it, so that's extra money for this year. It's adding on for them to update the valuation for this year.
Why are you doing that?
To set, our auditors are requesting it.
Ah, okay. So we don't really have a choice because the auditors want it, that's why we're doing it.
Correct.
Okay, that's good, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, just a couple of questions on number 32. This is the renewal for the Propel Charter School at the Old Columbus School. This is the third renewal. Mr. White's not here, but somebody can tell me, how many lease agreements do we have in the district on our schools?
I believe we have Propel, and then we have
Propel.
This Clayton Council.
Yeah, it counts.
So we have Columbus and Clayton.
Okay. But Propel is the only charter school?
Correct.
Okay. And this is the third renewal, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Now, normally, there's no reason that they normally do like not a cost of living, but like an annual percentage of increase in the rate. We did not do that on this one, so it's just all terms are the same for this one. So nothing increased, no additional cost to the district. I know we have a very nice agreement in there where on repairs that stays the same. Have we, over the 2 or 3 years that we've had it, what was our cost that we put in the building? Or you may not have that now, but at some point I'd like to know that. I just wanted to point this out that 3 years ago, this was the first charter school, and it brings home the point that charter school applications, approvals, and arrangements are sometimes based on politics, and this is a perfect example here. We leased with a charter school company, and at that time, we did not have a relationship with anyone leasing our properties. But because of the political connections of the owner of this applicant or the person on the application, we had a lease arrangement with them, and so here they are leasing one of our facilities with also a very, very healthy clause in there that says if there's anything that goes bad over X amount of dollars, we will step in and do it. I mean, we're partnering, and we do not or did not offer that to any other charter school applicant. And so when people talk about sometimes that the process can be viewed as slanted or tainted towards some, this is the perfect example. We will be voting on this, and we now will give them a slight edge up in terms of how they can manage our students there. Keep in mind, this is also a school that did not make AYP. And so as board members, we have to find a way to clean the process up so when these applications come before us, that everything is clean and above board. This particular case was not, and it continues to have preferential treatment from this board on how we handle them. And so the public should be very, very concerned about this arrangement. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mr. McCray?
Thank you. Number 28 is the homestead and farmstead exclusion. I'm so glad that this happened on during my tenure on the board, because I fought very long and hard for it. I'm sure many of my colleagues did. This is one of the greatest things we've done. 29, the Act 1 resolution. We have to do this every year by code, by law, and my only concern is the change that's coming in November, but we don't, Mr. Johnson, yeah, Ron, we don't project the need to increase to ask for more tax from anybody. We don't project any problem, do we?
Well, if we were to try to exceed the index, we'd have to have our budget on an accelerated timeline, and that would have to go to referendum.
But at this point, we don't look like we're going to do that.
Well, that would be up to the board, but at this point, we don't foresee trying to
Right.
raise past the index.
That's what I was hoping for. That's because I don't want to leave that legacy. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. McCray. Dr. Hawley? Mrs. Azuda? Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. Let me just go over a couple things, if I may, Mr. Joseph, with you. And going to 28, which is the exemption, the property tax allocation from the Commonwealth of $15,579,499.30, so well over $15 million, over $15.5 million. That's based on Act 1, which is the casino dollars coming back to support our homestead exemption, right?
Yes.
So that is a result of casino dollars, the taxes, supporting those individuals who qualify for the exemption in this district. Is that allocation from the state increased this year from last year?
Increased slightly.
Thank you. I want to pick up, too, on Mr. McCray's comment because, and I'm all in favor of this resolution, because what this resolution does, if passed by this board, we have no ability to raise taxes above the index, which is roughly 2%, which is what we raised taxes to this year.
Yes.
The current year, right, whenever we unanimously passed it last year. And I think my only other question has to do with the Columbus Middle School. Why is the lease in terms of dollars the same, and there's not at least a cost of living increase in that lease back to the school district? Is there any reason for that?
Mr. Reiser, in evaluating the lease and the continuation on the current terms, it's because those costs that are growing costs, they're paying for the utilities and the costs related to electricity and natural gas for the building. So those costs that show the increases, they're bearing those costs. And we left the other costs the same, because I think that our original analysis is on what the square footage cost is on a lease similar to what this would be.
That it's your feeling, Mr. Camarda, that we will not be raising the rent in the third year of this agreement?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Sumter? Mrs. Fink, did you? Okay, so I actually have one. Just on the Act 1 resolution, I guess I just want to say, I will not be here to vote on whether the increase, whether there's an increase up to the index. But if there's a way to not increase up to the index, that would be awesome, because we did take that increase this year. So we did technically raise taxes this year. And to avoid, it would be good to avoid doing that 2 years in a row. As a taxpayer in the city of Pittsburgh, it would be good to avoid doing that 2 years in a row. Thank you. So we will move on to, am I right, proposals and grants awards? Yes, items 33 to the, just item 33. And let's do, well, 34 is general authorization. Oh, yeah, let's do just 33. Is there anyone who has any comments or questions on item number 33? Mr. McCray?
I think it's great. This is phenomenal. We're going with the fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. There's nothing better we can do for the children to help their health. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree. I mean, I think we should really be doing more schools, and more the merrier as far as I'm concerned on this one. It is great.
Just for the board's information, we did apply for more schools, but because the program's limited, these are the schools that actually were accepted.
Mrs. Fink?
Maybe we could institute a program, space available, of course, where we could have some fruits and vegetables grown by the children. And, have a garden patch in the schoolyard And if you can get some of the parents and kids to come during the summer and maintain the garden, I think that would be really good, because then they'd learn the science of growing their own food, and they'd also have the fresh fruits and vegetables, primarily when they came back to school in the fall. But, you know, I think it would be a great educational experience.
We do have, I think it's 4 schools with gardens, but primarily, I believe they grow vegetables, because if you think about most fruits, there are not that many fruits that, right, they're like trees and bushes, you know, that grow fruit, so, yeah. Huh? Yeah, well, strawberries, yeah, we could grow strawberries.
Langley has a greenhouse. We can do a lot with that.
Okay, so we'll move to item number 34, the special education budget. I have no idea. Let's begin with the end in mind. Mr. McCray. Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Azuda, Mr. Eisler.
Yes, you know, again, I think on these budget items, and when we're expending millions of dollars to educate our students, I'm assuming, Mr. Joseph, that this document is on our website?
Mary Jane Conley, Executive Director of Special Education. No, it is not, Mr. Eisler, but it can be.
I would strongly suggest it to be put on. I mean, I think there's information in here that people need to know about
Okay.
the quality of this program, about the fact that the Three Rivers Investment Board has supported this program, that you talk about your challenges as well as your successes. You don't gloss over anything in terms of what we need to do for students, what our responsibility is. And I really think that page 35, which is the special education data report, is really quite wonderful. I know that a couple years ago, Mr. Camarda and team put out a summary of, which was actually picked up by other people in the city and the county, which just gives you a snapshot of how we're spending our dollars and how many students are participating. So my advice, and I mean, there's nothing in here that I couldn't support, and it is a lot of money. I mean, this is another one of those budgets that we do mid-year, hoping that the state's going to give us enough money to cover all the things we're doing. Otherwise, we rely on the taxpayers to support it. But I do think that it is something people need to look at. Mr. Sumter does a very, very good job of explaining items, because we're on video and it's not, the visuals are not there unless you're on your computer. But I really commend you again for the quality of the programs that you and your team provide to the students who need them. So I would really encourage that this whole thing be put on the website. And to you, Mr. Joseph, and your team for working with special education and getting this budget out, thank you very much, and for holding the line. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Ms.
Eisler.
Shealy.
You're welcome. Mr. Sumter.
I'm good, thank you.
Mrs. Fink. Mr. Brantley.
Just a quick question for Ms. Conley. Can you talk about, just in a real quick response, this item or this budget that we'll be voting on next week, overall to those parents who may have their kids in our program, increase, decrease of services, generally speaking? Or are we holding the line?
We are holding the line on our services, but we are providing the best possible services we can at this point in time.
Okay. Will it impact them, or will they see a noticeable difference? For instance, are we losing any aide, staff, or anything along that line?
No, Mr. Brantley, not at all, because we redesigned the service delivery model last year, at the beginning of last year, and we implemented it this year. And in that service delivery model, with the resources we have available to us right now, we are using those resources, including teacher resources, more effectively and efficiently to support the students with disabilities in the district.
And in doing so, have we solicited input from those principals in those schools?
Actually, we have provided a parent survey, which a teacher survey, both general and special education teacher survey that we are currently analyzing now to see where our strengths and weaknesses are. And the program office, our program officers currently are meeting on an individual basis with each principal to ask the principals and to come up with a plan as to how we can improve our services for students.
And we're getting good feedback from those
So
principals.
far, we are.
That's a good thing. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I attend the graduation every year at Conroy. And I want to put out an invitation to anybody watching and anybody here. It is one graduation ceremony you want to be a part of. If you want to see how important public education is and see how important it is to have skilled, trained employees providing that service, you have to come to their graduation. And so, well, I'm glad to see that there's some feedback. Can you mention the schools that will be impacted by this budget?
Have I mentioned the schools?
Can you?
All of the schools will be impacted in some way by this budget.
But it primarily targets the Conroys and?
No,
No.
not at all. All of the schools.
Okay.
These are services provided to every school in the district who service students with disabilities, including the center schools.
Okay, that's what I mean, the centers are the ones.
Yes.
Okay, all righty, well, thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bruntley. So that concludes the packets for tonight. Can we, no, yes, go ahead.
Sheila, you're not going to be here next week. I'm not going to be here next week. On this general authorization that we were given tonight, 32, there are a couple issues that I have that I would really like to hear about. Ms. Kramer, if you can get the solicitor to respond to them, because I think it's kind of important. I mean, we're granting a license. I'm assuming that the Kappa logo is a registered trademark, that we have a registration on that, because that's what we're saying in this agreement.
Yes. Yes, there was trademarked on the Kappa logo, I believe, at the time that the school was open, but I can double check for you.
There's a difference between the copyright and a trademark. The trademark, Mark,
Absolutely.
right, you know this. This is
Yes, I
commerce,
do.
right?
Thank you.
That's why I'm asking the question. I don't doubt the copyright, but I want to make sure that what we are saying in here is accurate. So that's the first thing, okay? The second one is on Section 3, the charity donation. Are we a 501c3?
We're not a 501c3, but we are a charitable, we're tax exempt because we're a taxing jurisdiction, so it's under a different section of the revenue code. And Mr. Weiss did work on this agreement, and there are, I'm not remembering the language off by heart, but there's an alternative to 501c3 listed in the agreement. It's not just that designation.
Right, but it keeps referring to us as a foundation. This is my concern. What this company wants to do is not pay us a straight royalty. They want to make a donation to us is a tax write-off for them. I want to make sure that we're not saying something in here that is not accurate and it comes back to haunt us, because it's all based on our ability to be a tax-exempt organization under 501c3. I'm reading this, and I could be wrong, which is why I want to hear from you, of whether or not that means tax-exempt for their tax purposes, not ours. You follow me? I mean, the way I read this is clearly that it is a charitable donation to this foundation, which we are not.
And I would have to go back and research this, but probably Kappa was started around 1980, I believe. And it was maybe a year or two after that, Dick Wallace had brought this concept of a foundation that supported Kappa. I don't remember exactly, I don't know if it was for charitable donation purposes to us. There has to be something in the legal files, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember that we used the word foundation.
I understand, and that was for fundraising purposes, as I remember that. But this clearly states, provided the School District of Pittsburgh Foundation is qualified by the Internal Revenue Service. It is not Kappa. It is the School District of Pittsburgh, which is, again, one of the reasons I'm questioning, because you have friends at Kappa, you have all other things. The other question that I have has to do with term. And I would ask the solicitor to take a very clear look at this, because it says the term may be extended by mutual written agreement of the parties following exhaustion of the supply of inventory. I would really limit the term so that they have to sell off and we get the donation a heck of a lot quicker. This thing could drag out for a long time. The way this is written, there is no deadline on a term. It can exceed forever. And again, I know I'm not talking about royalty here. I know we're talking about donation, but I do think it would be nice if they're only going to sell 250, and this is only really going to be not a lot of money back to us, that we get it sooner rather than later. So if the solicitor could look at those, I'd appreciate it. Sorry, Ms. Shealy, but I had to get those out. Thank you.
No, I apologize, Mr. Iser, I forgot about this item. Just a little, while he's looking at this, it's already dated. Yeah. Could it not be dated?
It's the 12th day of May.
Yeah,
I can change the date once it's signed.
yeah. Because it has to at least be the 29th of May, right? Okay.
We'll review that whole thing.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, are there any items that we should specifically pull for further discussion for the legislative meeting? Mrs. Fink?
No, when you said about the date, I'm just noticing there's a reason for that. May
started
21st,
selling.
June 1st, and 2nd is a regional collectors event, and I think they wanted to have that pin available for that, whatever. This it should have been probably brought here last month, so we could have had time to go over it.
Seen it before?
I just did see it. I did not work on the agreement. Mr. Weiss did, but it was a time-sensitive agreement. It came up last minute. It was an award that Kappa won. They wanted to participate. It came through the principal at Kappa. There was a limited timeline to participate, and Mr. Weiss worked with the Hard Rock Cafe, and we're on the agreement, so.
Okay. Any items for further discussion? Number 32? Yes.
And I have on
Could you use your mic, please?
the Committee on Education, I'm going to select number 31.
And I'll leave everything open for possible discussion if necessary.
Okay, and Mr. Sumter was 29, I'm sorry. And I lost the item number, but I'll get it. It's the special ed budget, just 34. Okay. Seeing nothing else? This meeting's adjourned.